Nutrition, it can be an incredibly confusing arena, especially if you're trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to gain weight, or if you're trying to get strong, or create some sort of metabolic control that gives you some sort of outcome, specifically and especially aesthetically, right? As we get into the aesthetics, then we can a lot of times dive into some really incredible confusion that is potentially misleading and even worse, right? Making us really miss the mark and go maybe even in the opposite direction. The other thing with nutrition is we tend to ride these roller coasters where our norm, our basic normal nutrition is not so good because convenience and comfort and all these things are, hitting us all of the time. So then we go on these diets, and then the diets like help us lose weight, and maybe they're crash or maybe they're not. And then we go back to what we did before. For my, I think strongest tip or trick, or hack for nutrition is, what is one thing that's not helping you? And we all know the things that aren't helping us. It's not that we don't know what to do, or it's like, we know that broccoli is healthy. We know that Milky Ways are not healthy, right? From a simplistic standpoint, we can get into the weeds and some other stuff, but let's go simplistic. The thing that is not healthy, that you could see yourself not consuming for the rest of your life, and the thing that is healthy that you like, that you can replace with that. And if you did that even once every other month, for the next year to 2 years, you would completely 180 degree your diet, and it would be a lifestyle change that you could sustain for literally the rest of your life. That's kind of my approach usually to nutrition in its basic form. If I'm not doing a bunch of biometrics, if I'm not doing a bunch of measurements and calculating and tracking and all these things, like that's kind of my little life hack.
I would say one thing that people don't do when it comes to nutrition is they don't listen to their body. And more specifically, they don't listen to their gut. They're constantly looking at what experts say, what science says, whatever it is. And the best, most ideal human diet might absolutely suck for you. Because if you don't agree with it, if your body doesn't agree with it, if you find yourself constantly gassy, not sleeping well, always bloated, it doesn't matter if you're eating all the vegetables in the world and you're like, I'm doing the healthiest diet possible, then that's not for you. So I think people put too much power into nutritionists, too much power into the data, and not just looking at what's happening day to day. How do they feel? How much enjoyment are they getting from their diet? How sustainable is their diet? Does it align with their beliefs? I mean, there's so much, like I said, so much misinformation. It's very easy to get kind of lost in that.
Yeah. So I remember that one diet where all you ate was beans, and I just couldn't be around. No, I'm just kidding.
Which was actually earlier today. Had a lot of beans today.
Actually, you do eat quite a bit of beans.
I eat probably like a pound of beans a day.
And then if you look at like the paleo diet, right, it's like anti-bean.
Lectins are going to kill you.
And for me, my body runs really well off of beans as well. I don't eat near as many as you. But yeah, you tend to be a little bit more vegan-esque, vegetarian-esque. I tend to be a little bit more meat-esque. And that's the other thing is oftentimes if you're just having one type of food, one type of macronutrient or even micronutrient or whatever, chances are it probably doesn't work. Now, at the same time, if your body works wonderfully off it, again, you don't have to listen to the experts or whatever. If your GI tract is saying, hey, we're good to go, and all your biometrics and health indicators and your aesthetics are rocking, then hey, by all means, get after it. But most of the time what I've found is I don't function well. And I think you've done probably twice the amount of diets that I've done, but I've done, at least 20 different diets. Oh. And really just to kind of test and experiment and see what's going on. And I would recommend like testing out stuff and seeing how it is. If you're not going to do that, choose one thing to replace that you could, not have for the rest of your life and all that stuff. Yeah. Venture into some, see how it makes you feel, but don't say, oh, this is the end all be all because you read all the persuasive marketing material on it and then dive in head first and then all the documentaries, whatever it was.
Well, I think doing an elimination diet is such a great starting point for everybody, because once you can eliminate kind of known allergens and you can see how they make you feel, one thing that I realized just training so many different types of people, and even though I wasn't a nutritionist, so I didn't give nutrition advice, but we would talk about it, was how many people lived not realizing they weren't supposed to feel that way. Or they always felt groggy, they always felt low energy, they always felt gassy, whatever it was. They didn't realize that, oh wait, I'm not supposed to feel crappy for all the time. So starting an elimination diet or doing something like that under the care of a health professional, you'll really start to see what makes your body work. And having that kind of power, then that means you know what you can have, you know what you can't have, no food is off limit, and you can make it all work.
Yeah, probably another kind of stigma or issue oftentimes with nutrition is social settings, right? Yeah. Like going out with friends or going out or doing stuff is like, oh, I can only have this tofu and it can only be cooked this way, or whatever it is. But then you go somewhere to a restaurant or whatever, and they don't have that tofu or whatever it is. So then how do you go about? So also, learning like, hey, it's okay. Again, it's okay to go off of the nutrition a little bit, or make a mistake, or do something that's not exactly to the plan, or even to the elimination diet. Now, obviously, if you're doing an elimination diet or something like that, you're going to get the best results if you actually eliminate, right? Because then you'll know, like, okay, I am allergic to this. But the beauty of like the elimination diet is like, sometimes I can't drink milk, but then 10 years later, everything is different in your
changes. It's constantly fluctuating.
Exactly. So now I can have milk and it doesn't do anything to me, and I'm not saying that is exactly what's going to happen with you or happen with me. But yeah, the social setting thing, I know that was like the big stigma, and there's a couple of ways that I've kind of helped people manage that. They've asked me like, oh, what do you do? And for me, it's either I'll eat before I go. And then when I'm there, I can still eat a little bit, but I'm not like overeating all of the things that I know are not going to help me, right? If I go there satiated, chances are I'm not going to just keep cramming food down my gullet. And then I'll usually get like a big glass of water or whatever and drink that as kind of my filler, and then have maybe a little bit of food so I'm not the weird guy there. The thing that I usually don't do, but I have done in the past is like, pre-package everything and pre-plan my meals and then bring my Tupperware and then open it up on the table. And
before, and unless you're competing in a show and it's coming up like within a couple weeks, don't be there.
Yeah, that is a way. But if maybe get caught up and there is some, chances are if you look hard enough on the menu, or if you talk with the waiter or the cooks or whatever, they can probably figure something out that's at least similar to the nutrition that works with your body. But again, you have to ask those questions, and you have to be okay with having that conversation. The only hard part is if you're at like a party and all they have is, chips and salsa, and then that's it or whatever.
Yeah. Getting full on chips and salsa is one of the worst feelings ever.
Delicious.
I think one thing for me also in the last few years that came up, and what came up for all of us, because I know you were of the era of eating every 2 to 3 hours, eating a certain amount of macronutrients, and realizing that you weren't tied to that you could incorporate longer spans of time between meals. So I don't like to conform into saying like, I am a faster, I am a this, but to incorporate certain things like that into those days, like for the way I like to get ready for a party is I won't eat that day. So that way I know, because I already know if I eat before and I go to a party, I'll just overeat twice. So if I undereat before, I know I will, chances are pretty good, I'm not going to super overdo it and blow my entire day. So having those spans of just being okay with being hungry, whether your goal is to put muscle on, to be fit, whatever it is, being okay with being hungry is something that I had to learn. I had to relearn, because that was not the case when I was younger.
Yeah. So Dr. Mike T. Nelson, he's a great friend of mine. He talks a lot about metabolic flexibility. And so being able to either intermittently fast during the party or intermittently fast before the party, and then that party is now your food, right? Metabolic flexibility is also, it's like being able to go into fasted states and not feel horrible and feel like just bonked and de-energized and sluggish. Because you've gone for periods of time without, so your body knows how to respond to that and biochemically tackle that. But it's also being able to eat maybe some crappy food from time to time and some macronutrients that don't exactly line up with your nutrition plan, right? And eating some things that are maybe not good for you, but not having that ruin you metabolically and not having that ruin your body because you've created enough metabolic flexibility. I just love that word, right? Where I can, from time to time, I can have a Snickers or I can have a couple beers or whatever, and it's not going to crush me.
No, and that typically works when you're leaner. When you're in a leaner body fat level, that's when you have a little bit more flexibility. So that's just another reason why you'd want to get a little bit leaner, is to be able to enjoy beer, to be able to enjoy food, and not get so wrapped up into the mentality, like, oh, this is good, this is bad. It's just food. Food is food. I mean, there are some things that are just not necessarily good, like prepackaged foods. Snickers, you mentioned Snickers like 3 times. It's like the worst candy bar. I can't stand that. That is like, it's.
I don't actually eat Snickers, which is why I said.
Is that the first one you thought of?
Yeah, I just thought of a candy. No, I'd rather have like Swedish fish or like
that's the second.
Or like
okay,
or
so
like sour candies, yeah, chewy candies.
So Aaron's got the palate of a 3-year-old when it comes to candy.
1,000%. I will eat Sprees and Skittles.
The bottom of the bag at the Halloween, like that. That's the stuff that you like push off to the side. You're like, yeah, I'm good.
Sweet tarts, Smarties.
They're literally the stuff they give you at the dentist. We could go all out. We're just gonna have an episode on candy.
Very addicted to sugar, which is why I have metabolic flexibility.
We've gone so far off the rails, and I love it.
So if you want some nutrition hacks, don't do what I do.
Don't do it. No.
Well, I think you can do that.
You've afforded yourself the ability to.
Exactly. It's being able to put yourself in that position so that you can. And that's the other thing is like a lot of people think, restricting calories so much is the way. I'll tell you what. So a great story. We had a couple of fighters and girl fighters, and oftentimes because of estrogen and progesterone and stuff like that, it's much harder for them to lose weight. And the number one thing that helped them lose weight was adding 350 calories to their diet. The number one thing to help them lose weight. We just added 350 calories, and it wasn't obviously Skittles and Smarties and Sweet Tarts and whatnot, but we added 350 calories to their diet, and sure enough, and it was usually in the forms of protein and carbohydrates, and sure enough, all of a sudden their metabolic engine started to rev up, and then they dropped weight, which is obviously not how it should work, but what was happening is they were working so hard that they were so low in their calories that their metabolic system was like freaking out, creating hormone structures to hold on to anything and everything that it got because it wasn't getting enough. And obviously their engines were out the roof because they were, training 2, 3, 4 hours a day, and sometimes even longer. But yeah, we just added the 350 calories and boom, all of a sudden weight's starting to come off. Oh, imagine that.
On the flip side of that, having clients that were like, man, I don't know what it is. I just can't lose weight. Maybe it's my thyroid. Maybe it's my hormones, whatever it is. And then once you start breaking it down, you realize what you're eating. You realize most people underestimate how much they're eating. They're far more often eating way more in that smoothie, in that tablespoon of peanut butter, in snacking. I will tell you, when I get the best results and when my clients got the best results is when we listen to one thing, and that was never snacking. Snacking is, I'm going to say it right now, snacking is the devil. Snacking is the worst thing you can do if you want to lose body fat. If you're trying to gain, man, more power to you. Just snack all day. But snacking is just keeping you in that highly insulated with fat. It's
high glucose, then high insulin, and you're just constantly there.
You're never in a catabolic state, which is good. We hear catabolic and we think, oh, that's bad. It's automatically bad. No, we need to have anabolic, catabolic. They work together. So we need to be able to eat what we have. So we want to have longer spans sometimes. And people are just constantly overfed, and undernourished.
Yeah. And this part, like this thing isn't really a life hack, but it is very helpful. I would have every single client, I would have them record 2 weeks and I would have them use an app and I would have them measure to the greatest of their ability. And all of the clients that wanted to lose weight that were like, I don't know, I'm eating healthy. Every single one of them would say, I'm eating healthy. They would track it and they're like, wow, I'm eating way more than I thought I was. And every single client that wanted to gain weight, it was the opposite. They thought they were eating so much and they're like, man, I can't believe how much I'm not eating. So that isn't necessarily a life hack because it does take time, it does take effort, it does take focus. But I'll tell you what, if you do that for a week even, but up to 2 weeks, man, you'll start to see your routine of how you eat that goes along with your circadian rhythm, right? Your wake sleep cycles. And then, and you'll see, are you eating too much? Are you not eating enough? And then how do you need to adjust that?
Yeah, and even though it's not a hack, I'm just gonna go ahead and executive decision. That is a hack. We're gonna incorporate that as the hack because you will see far faster results if you are tracking. You don't have to be specific about it. You don't have to be weighing everything out. If you are that type of person, more power to you. But if you are tracking, and in conjunction with that, you're tracking your weight, you're tracking your measurements, and you see what you're doing, what's happening, you have so much power. Because most people feel powerless with their diet. They don't know what to eat. They don't know how much they eat. They kind of go up and down. Oh, I lost 5 pounds. I gained 10 pounds. And they don't know how. But if you can track that and you can see the trends, that will get you so much faster to the goal that you're looking for and keep you there for longer.
Yeah. So from the minutia and like some easy kind of things that you can implement right away, all the way into the much more complex, but still totally hacks, because if you spend that time, it's just like investment, right? If this is the result that you want, or this is the income that you want, right? You're going to need to invest that time and that energy into that. And once you do, boom.
Absolutely. Your behaviors have to be matched. They have to be congruent to what you want to accomplish. So first figure out what that is, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.